I want to welcome everybody. Today's topic is fiduciary versus suitability. Today is a topic that I find that quite often terms are thrown around. People don't quite necessarily understand, what it means. And so from there, I find if I can explain it, then you can understand who's presenting you information and why. And always our belief is, if you have good information, we can make good decisions. So without further ado, let's get started. So fiduciary versus suitability. Is your advisor working in your best interest? Does your advisor work at a bank? If you've ever walked into a bank, I use a local bank here. I always used to chuckle because when you walk into the lobby, there was always this sign, have you talked to Vince yet? Right now, I have no idea the advisor at your local branch's name, but that's their way of directing you through into their product sales department. Or if your advisor works at a financial institution, right? Those are the big names, right? And I'm not going to name it just from, who they are. They're the ones that can advertise on TV. If you hear about them pretty regularly in commercials, chances are that they're a marketing firm. Do they work for your 401k provider? Sometimes a lot of these 401ks that your companies have engaged with may actually be employing somebody that might have their interests ahead of their own, right? So they haven't done the level of education that's necessary to be deemed a fiduciary. Or if they work in, this is a term that is quite often is confusing, do they work at a broker dealer? So the SEC defines a broker as someone who acts as an agent for someone else and a dealer as someone who acts as a principal for their own account. Then chances are your advisor has their own interests at heart. The first disclosure, the first thing I want to point out, if you've ever been in a sales meeting with an advisor and they've leaned over while they were showing you forms and they put their forearms over the documents that you're signing, chances are you might be dealing with somebody that's being held to a suitability standard, or at least at a bare minimum suspicious. If you're missing pages from a numbered presentation, you should be on guard. If they're putting on dancing shoes and sidestepping a direct question when asked what their fees are, right, you should be on guard. If they don't disclose all the fees, if they sell you something and don't deliver the final documents, there's cause to be a little concerned. Does not disclose wrap fees, right? So that's something that a lot of the suitability folks, we charge a wrap fee, and it's nomenclature that allows them that quite often it's very hard to discern or to pinpoint how they're actually getting paid. If they alter state approved illustrations or create their own. Now you go, that's impossible. Nobody would do that. Oh, really? I was just sent this by an advisor this year, and I'm, again, not going to mention the advisor's name, but when I got this sent to me, this was an advisor of ours that was out of Georgia that had a client prospect in New York that was being approached by an advisor out of New Jersey. Well, I'm from New Jersey, and if you're around this area, chances are I've at least heard of you. So when I saw his name, I was like, yep, I've seen him at some of our events where we've done trainings. And so it is illegal, if not highly unapproved, to alter and doctor approved illustrations. This gentleman actually created his own illustration. Now, I was able to figure out what this was just because of the index that he was using, but I can tell you that this is not company or corporate approved, or, and at a bare minimum, it's probably not been approved in New Jersey. And when I did look up this advisor, just 5 years ago, he had charges that were brought against him by the state for almost this exact type of behavior. So he's still out there doing this stuff and hadn't learned his lesson. So, it's frustrating because you see stuff like this in the industry and you say, well, they're not allowed to do that. But until you get burned, how do you know? So the second thing is no one, and you have to understand that, whether you're investing yourself or whether you're using an advisor or whether you're using your 401k or 403p at work, nobody can invest for free. You cannot invest for free. That's a huge misnomer. So when you see no load mutual funds, there's no commission paid, it just means that they've done a great job of hiding things within the documents. And I always say this, that, they are required all the time at delivery at some point in time pre-sale to deliver a prospectus which is anywhere from 300 to 800 pages. Well, when you need 300 to 800 pages to explain something, chances are it's too expensive. New 401k legislation requires companies to be more transparent with fees. Yet many times, I was just talking to somebody the other day, they were like, they had no idea the fees that were inside their existing 401k after major legislation was passed for them to disclose. At the end of the day, you just have to ask yourself, who is paying for these huge marketing budgets or these huge office buildings or these huge support staffs? You are, as a consumer. So as much as it sounds wonderful, remember there's that old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it probably is. So what is a fiduciary standard? It's a very high bar, but it's an investment advisor, somebody like ourselves, are bound to a fiduciary standard that is regulated by the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC, or state security regulators, both of which hold advisors to a fiduciary standard that requires them to put their clients' interests above their own, right? So the Reader's Digest version, a fiduciary must by law put a client's interests ahead of their own. It's just the right way to do business. But the act is specific in defining what a fiduciary means, and it stipulates that advisors must place the interest below that of their clients. It consists of a duty of loyalty and care. So, compared to a suitability standard, broker-dealers are required to fulfill what is called a suitability obligation, which is loosely defined as making recommendations that suit the best interests of their client. Some broker-dealers feel this is unfair as it may affect or limit their ability to sell investment vehicles that benefit their bottom line. But overall, a suitability obligation means that a broker-dealer needs to believe that the decisions that they truly benefit their client. So it's a very gray area, which is why a lot of people, just because it wasn't illegal, they could sell it. I mean, that's their position 9 times out of 10. So, investment advisor is the column in the middle, broker-dealer, column to the right. Focus. An investment advisor is really focused on client and building a relationship. A broker is focused on transactions, right? That's what they got to sell you that stock, sell you that mutual fund, sell you that transaction. Standard, right, that they're held to. Fiduciary is what an investment advisor is held to versus suitability. Legal obligation to put the client interest first. For an investment advisor, the answer is yes. For a broker, no. Primary business, advice. An investment advisor gives good advice, at least based on their experience. A broker, they're just saying, yep, this seems pretty good to me. Primary business is advice versus buying and selling. Compensation, fee only, right? An investment advisor can actually be a fee only advisor. Broker is just going to be commissions and fees. Disclosure, transparency, that's really, I think, the biggest differentiator, right? It's just about disclosure. I don't begrudge anybody from making money. As long as you tell people up front, let them make the decisions versus a broker. Nope. If you don't find it, shame on you. Incentives. Our goal typically with clients is to increase the client's assets, and as they grow, so does the investment fees. Interests are aligned versus revenue sharing, which is typically not disclosed or it's hidden, or transaction based, or what I see is double dipping, right? So that's what you see a lot in that arena. Okay, then types of annuities. So we've talked about this before, and I think that this is a perfect example of the differentiator, why you hear information out there and why it can be confusing. So when we look at annuities, remember I did a whole series on annuities and understanding and having, I think the topic was called Annuities Simplified. So if you're going to look at annuities, they're confusing vehicles, but there's a lot of great annuities out there and they perform a very specific purpose, and it's a great tool if properly structured. But I've talked about this before, that this word here in the middle, variable, when you see that word, that's because they're offered by the suitability arena. And that means that they can not only charge commission, but fees on it as well as time goes on. We're not fans of these. This is why when you hear that commercial by Fisher Investments, I hate Ken Fisher, I hate annuities and you should too. This is what he's talking about. Versus fixed annuities or fixed index, those are actually really good vehicles and should be considered as bond alternatives in today's investment arena and environment. So key takeaways from today's call: investment advisors are bound by a fiduciary standard that places their clients' interests ahead of their own. Brokers work for broker-dealers whose interests they serve. They follow a suitability standard, which means only the transaction must be suitable for the client's needs. Broker-dealers can sometimes find themselves in conflict with their clients, who promote selling one of their own instruments or adding unnecessary transaction charges, breaks the standard, and isn't in the best interest of the client. So if you're interested in getting a second opinion, first of all, understanding what you may have, that's key. That's the starting point, is what you currently have versus what you may want versus what you may hear. And that's why dealing with the fiduciary, dealing with people that are aligned with fiduciaries, getting a second opinion is just, in our opinion, prudent and smart. So this is our disclosure. We are investment advisory services. And this just says that everything that I told you is based on my opinion, right? And this is based on my experience. But I do want to thank you for joining us. And then we want you to continue to join us week in and week out. We'll keep these short, to the point, hope you to understand what you currently have. Don't be afraid to reach out. If you were invited here by another advisor, please circle back with them with any questions you may have. Again, we're all working together out there. Stay safe, and I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. Chris Lester from Professional Planning Services, out. Have a great day.